So it's like 3 hours before graduation at the Air Force Academy. My whole family's out there. And they pull me from the ceremony. They say, you're not graduating today. I'm standing there in my parade dress. My whole family's out there. And if you want to talk about the one time I thought about, like, hanging myself, like, that was it. I'm like, I just made it through all of this. Finally get out of here. My entire family is here. And they pulled me from my graduation ceremony 3 hours before I was supposed to walk and get my diploma.
You good?
I'm good.
Welcome back to the Present Fathers Podcast. Got a really special guest today, Adam DeRito. Adam, I'm excited to have you here in Nashville. We've been having a great day together, getting to know each other. I believe you're a true patriot for this country, not just in uniform, but what you're doing outside of that, which can't wait to share with the audience. But let's start with, I know you have a pretty wild story. You were a young EMT, like volunteer EMT, if I get this right. You're like, what, 16 years old?
Yeah, started my public service career really with the Civil Air Patrol when I was 12, but didn't get really into the hardcore volunteer stuff. So I was about 16 when I was legally allowed to have a license.
Right. And so it was your first ever EMT response call.
Yeah, first one ever.
And walk us through what happened.
Yeah,
'cause
so
it's pretty wild.
I was actually at a track meet. I was on the track team after I did football season. So our beepers go off because back then, this is before cell phones and
Yeah, the
smartphones.
pager.
Pager. So
Yeah.
tones go off, and I'm like, oh shit, like gotta go because like, you're all excited. You're first got my license. I'm really excited to go, and jump in the car that I was definitely not supposed to be driving, by myself, but jumped in my little like T100 Toyota. Get down to the fire station. I had just missed the truck because the truck. I'm like, I gotta go. I can't like not go because I called the captain and I was like, hey, I'm gonna go down there. He's like, oh yeah, just meet us out on Echo Lake Road. And Echo Lake Road is like this big kind of dangerous road near my house in High Crest Lake in West Milford, New Jersey. So get down there with all my bunker gear. And crazy part was, like I said, this is my first call ever. And you see all the stuff on like Rescue 911 as a kid growing up, and you know until you actually see it. So there's this car, it's smoking. Looks like it was going to go on fire. It had hit a tractor trailer head on across the median. So it looked like the guy fell asleep, or we found out that the guy had a dog in the car, and the dog had jumped onto his lap, distracted him. He crossed the median, hit a tractor trailer head on, probably going about 70 miles an hour. The dog had got ejected through the windshield and then hit a tree. So it was the pile of fur. The tractor trailer just was missing its front tire and its bumper. The guy's just sitting there talking with the cops. Mm-hmm. And we get there, and the guy's like slumped over the dashboard, pretty, all right, whatever. He's obviously dead, but then you look closer, and he has no head. Because he'd gone into the tractor trailer under the, like where the DOT, bumper height is or whatever it is, but he had gone through, got decapitated. So me not want to be like the new guy throwing up and everything else. They always teach you to carry a little bottle of Vicks in your kit because the smell of death, like
right, yeah.
it radiates. And you know this as an Army officer, but like I mean, like reach in my pocket, I take Vicks, I stick it in my nose because I didn't smoke as a kid because I was trying to be a good person. And I go in there and everyone's like, "What is going on?" Like, DeRito, you could stay back. You don't have to look at this. I'm like, no, I could totally handle this. And
I got this, guys.
So we go in there, and back then we were still using short backboards or skeds to pull people out. So we get in there, and we have my gloves on. We detach the seatbelt from his waist. We put the board in underneath his back. We pull the seat down to pull the body out. But what we didn't really understand is the second we started moving his body and pulling it out, his guts dumped all over the dashboard. Everyone instantaneously just starts throwing up because ruptured human bile, internal organs, like smells absolutely disgusting. And I'm sitting there, had a bunch of Vicks in my nose, and I'm like, "No, it's fine, guys. It's totally fine. Like, we're just gonna get this out. I don't want to drop." Everyone just drops their stuff and leaves. And I'm like, "Nope, not me. Like, I'm the new guy. I'm not gonna be a bitch about this, And everyone's like, "Dude, are you all right? Like, your first call
thought you were
ever."
A psychopath.
Yeah, and this is kind of like started my journey on all these things is because like the first things I ever witnessed were like massively traumatic. I mean, most people that I know who became EMTs, they never even saw any of this stuff. They would be
it's
lucky.
like a broken bone or something, or
correct. Yeah, my first accident was a decapitation. Fully body evisceration, all of the dashboard, and it just kind of goes on from there. You know, so I had an incredible fire career and EMT career. I was also on the town search and rescue team as well. So, I mean, I saw a lot as a volunteer firefighter, a volunteer EMT, and a volunteer search and rescue technician. But yeah, I mean, that's what really primed me to join the military. And, I was a 9/11 kid. So I saw the towers burning from my hometown of West Milford, New Jersey off of Route 23. And I lost family in the towers as well. My cousin was killed in Tower 2, Cantor Fitzgerald. And, that's what inspired me to join the military.
Yeah.
We lost one of our classmates, class of 2005, Brian Perello, Lance Corporal Brian Perello. He was killed in Iraq the year before I joined the military.
Okay.
So it was like your classic military feel. It was raining. It was at the church. The entire town is there. Every fire truck, every ambulance, every police car is escorting the body through the town. And, that's when the war got real for us, because a lot of people, especially in the mid 2000s, like the war was real in Iraq and Afghanistan at that point in time.
Right. But you come back home and it's like, it's not even happening.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this kind of stuff's never going to touch our small wooded town in New Jersey, but it did, and a lot of us graduating the class of 2006 right after that, we knew what we were getting into. And all of my friends enlisted in the Marine Corps, the Army, or the Navy.
Okay.
And I was the only one who decided it was a good idea to join the Air Force because I had gotten accepted to the Air Force Academy.
Yeah, so let's unpack that a little bit. So stay tuned. A lot coming on here with this story. But Adam's had a lot of wild experiences, which, as a 16-year-old, that's for the average person's life experience, that's more traumatic than what most people ever see. So nice, baptism into the career field there for you. But so I know that you grew up, pretty turbulent family in some ways, or, I heard you mention too that, you didn't know that you were poor, but like your parents had to work a lot and kind of essentially hide that from you. And a lot of the reason why you wanted to also kind of go to a service academy was to kind of escape your upbringing, right? And kind of be able to move on. So just unpack that a little bit, kind of your upbringing there and a little bit of those motivators, not just the 9/11 side of things, but also there were some other, I think, things that drove you pretty hard to want to kind of rise above, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. So I was born in Poughkeepsie, New York originally, and then my parents moved to New Jersey, in a town called Clifton, New Jersey, kind of like a semi-inner city area. So the funny thing is I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood, but like as a 5-year-old, you're not cognizant of that.
Right,
but all my neighbors,
kids to play with.
All my neighbors were Black, Mexican, Polish, Chinese. You know what I mean? Like you don't realize that like you're living in the bad part of town.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like these are just my neighbors. Like I just grew up. So I grew up, and I hate to say this because it sounds like very woke, but like I grew up very colorblind. Because these were my friends, the Indians, the Blacks, the Mexicans. You know what I mean? And it was great. And it was actually good for me to grow up and see that. But we were very, very poor. I didn't realize how bad it was because I didn't know any better. What else do I know? I'm growing up with the hand-me-down clothes from the neighbors or, my cousins or whatever else. Like, buying a new pair of shoes every year was like a big deal. You know what I mean? Like $20, $30 is a lot of money to my parents.
Yeah.
My parents, my dad had lost his job initially. He was a very good artist. He worked for this company called Carol Lace. But a lot of their stuff got sold off to China during the time. So he had to do odd jobs working for UPS or being a stocker for the shelves at the local grocery store. But you didn't think anything of that as a kid. My dad's going to work. My mom's going to work,
Yeah.
But as a young kid, I was taking care of my very young sisters at the time. I was 7 years old. We're all 2 years apart. So my sister's 5 and 3. You know what I mean? But hey, you got to hold the house down until we get home from work kind of thing.
Wow.
But it's kind of funny because you grow up like watching all these 90s movies and stuff. And I was bullied my entire life. I mean, even today, I'm still bullied. But I'm bigger now, so it's whatever.
Well, with the last name like DeRito.
Yeah, I mean, that was it, right?
Yeah.
Dorito, the corn chip guy or whatever it is. But, for
Think
me...
of tortilla chips.
Yeah. The funny thing is I hate Doritos. I don't even eat Doritos. And everyone knows, you got a bag of Doritos here,
you shouldn't eat Doritos because they're super unhealthy. So, you can have like...
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, one bag like once a month maybe.
Yeah, and I was always a bigger kid too. Like I was always like the fatter kid.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I didn't even really eat a lot. I was just always a bigger kid. Even now, like I'm just a bigger guy. It's just how my genetics are.
Yeah.
My entire life, I thought I was Italian. And decades later, I find out I'm not. I'm Irish. You know what I mean? But that. We'll get to that at the end of the podcast. That's why half my family doesn't talk to me anymore. Don't do 23andMe, everybody. They're selling off your information.
Well, yeah. Well, they're getting bought out. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I did that. Right. So, but you grow up watching these movies like The Sandlot.
Right.
Like I was like the smallest kid. I was picked on. I was never really good at anything.
Okay.
I tried really hard. I played sports all my life, but like I was never like good. I was just like good enough to be left out.
Right.
Or warm the bench.
Yeah.
Okay. But I did some karate when I was a kid, and that was like one of the first aspects of losing and failing that I learned was I was always the bigger kid, so I would always beat everybody up, and so I was like winning in karate.
Gotcha.
Hapkido karate is what I did. And then they put me up in a different weight class. And I remember I went to one of these tournaments and I got my ass kicked. And I quit. That was the first time I remember quitting in my life. I was like 7, 8 years old or whatever. And I quit. I quit because I lost. And it's something that obviously still haunts me to this day is because like you remember quitting.
Mm.
You know, I put all these years of work into doing something you thought you were good at, that you were finally above your peers as a kid, and you were finally respected in your peer group in elementary school, and then you lose, you know, and I was embarrassed, right? So I kind of became this like reclusive nerd. You know, I never could afford video games, but I'd go play video games with my neighbors or something like that. You know, I didn't go out and play as much sports. I still played football at the time, pretty much until I got into middle school. That was the second time. But like I played, you know, football all the way through elementary school, did really well because I was a bigger guy. It was easy for me to tackle kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, when you start, you know, crossing that line, playing with the bigger kids, like they'll wreck you. You know what I mean? And I actually didn't even play football in middle school because I got my ass kicked. As a sixth grader, they made me play with the middle school kids, seventh and eighth graders.
Wow.
And there's a big puberty jump between
for sure.
12 and 14, 15-year-olds.
Right.
Right. I remember like I was really good in the lower leagues. You know, we were winning like championships or whatever like all the time. And I was always on the winning team. And then I go out and play with the middle school kids. They called them the midgets back then. So we were in the pony group and then we went to the midgets. And then as a pony kid, I was playing with the midgets. And it was just like, it wasn't even fair. Like I was just getting my shit rocked, like almost in like Mighty Ducks, like two guys pick you up and just throw you into a wall.
Right.
Like I got obliterated. So I quit football. I didn't play football all the way through middle school because I got like, that was my first time experiencing like legitimate pain. And my dad's like, just sit in an ice bath. You know, I'm like 12 years old and I'm like, oh God, I can't feel anything. But when I was in sixth grade, I decided I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy.
Okay.
It was a very young age, at 12 years old. You know, I can even look back at my sixth grade yearbook and Mrs. Kissak's class at Apshua Elementary School. Like I remember these things when they said, I want to go to the Air Force Academy and I want to be an aeronautical engineer. I said, if I can't be good at sports, I'm not getting any girlfriends because I'm a loser. I'm just a fat dork kid who gets straight A's all the time. Then I'm going to go to the Air Force Academy. I'm going to prove everybody wrong.
And that's our Air Force recruiting video right there. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm like, I want to fly fighter jets. I love the air shows growing up.
Yeah.
You know, I was like the smallest kid from the Sandlot, just a dorky kid, always getting made fun of all the time. And I'm just like, you know, I'm the poor kid. I never had nice clothes. I never had any of this stuff. But my parents worked so hard to make sure my sisters and I had a good life. And I give my parents all the credit in the world because I never got handed anything in my life. Like I had a job since I was like 8 years old, mowing lawns. Like if you want new clothes, you want to buy a new model I was literally into model airplanes. I was such a dork. Like I built my whole ceiling in my rooms growing up were just airplane models everywhere. You know, so like
I feel like that was a lot more normal back then.
Yeah, it was.
I knew a lot of people who had model everything.
Like Legos, model airplanes, things like that. Now kids are just stuck staring at their iPads all day on TikTok, right? Yeah. But no, it's like if you want to buy a new model airplane, you want a pair of shoes for school, then you got to go out and work for it. So I learned work ethic at a very young age, landscaping and things like that. And I knew I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy, but I knew I wasn't like the best at everything. So I'm like, at the time, at least from the research I had done with you send a letter to the Air Force Academy, they send you back a little pamphlet in the mail. Like it's not like the internet today. Didn't even have the internet for a long period of time.
Or if they had a website, it was like, well, one, it was AOL dial-up, and then it's like a singular web page with like text. It's not like videos and stuff.
I don't think I even had the internet in my house with like a 56K modem until I was like 15, 16 years old.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We didn't have any money. Couldn't even buy a computer back then. You know what I mean? So if I wanted to use the computer, I had to like go to the school, the library, or my neighbor's house. And so I just kind of figured out, I'm like, all right, I need to be the best person that I can in order to get out of New Jersey and go to the Air Force Academy. So like,
and your family was really supportive of this too, right? Because they wanted you to like.
They're like, if you want to go to college, you got to pay for it on your own.
Yeah, but they wanted you to kind of like be able to.
Yeah, and my parents are hippies. Like they seriously, they're like, where'd you get this military stuff from? Like no one. Like I grew up watching We Were Soldiers and Saving Private Ryan and Black Hawk Down, and I'm like, this is what I want to do.
Yep.
And they're like, we'll support you whatever you want to do. So I ended up like when I was 12 years old, I joined something called the Civil Air Patrol, which is the official auxiliary of the United States Air Force. So I joined in like 2000, September of 2000, right? A year before 9/11. So
you were like
12.
Okay.
I was 12 years old.
Yeah. All right.
And
yeah, I forgot we're the same age. So.
I went to the Lone Eagle Composite Squadron in Morristown, New Jersey. It's like, I remember all these things. And it's like kids wearing BDU uniforms. Half their dads are like Vietnam vets or whatever.
Yeah, they're just roughing them up.
Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, this is cool. This is way cooler than the Boy Scouts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like a bunch of kids running around in the woods doing push-ups and PT and like doing leadership and airmanship classes and learning about the Air Force. And I'm like, oh, this is the best way to go to the Air Force Academy is like starting this way. And they do like security at air shows. And then they had something called like Hawk Mountain Ranger School, which is like this little like adventure group kind of, but like they were assigned to real search and rescue missions. Back in the 60s and 70s when the Civil Air Patrol was mostly adults, these guys would static line jump into airplane crashes and like go rescue
wild.
people. And I'm like, this is really cool. So you're learning that. You're learning how to find downed aircraft.
Right.
You're learning search theory at a very young age, 13,
How to
14
trap
years old.
animals and survive for days on
Yeah,
end.
so
right?
they would stick us, and half the instructors are like old dudes who are like PJs, Rangers,
Yeah.
and they just wanted to haze children. And you don't, because you think like the funny thing is you have this thing in your mind that the military is really hard, so there's no way that this is bad. You know what I mean? Like I'm getting stuck Ultima all leather black combat boots, walking in the rain, getting trench foot in BDU uniforms I got at a surplus store for like $10 because with old LCTU Alice, 2 equipment,
the belt or whatever.
the pistol belts and stuff.
Yeah.
And we're running 14 years old. We're running 5 miles every morning in combat boots,
Dang.
doing an obstacle course, and then we're hiking. The longest hike we ever did was 26 miles in 3 days.
You did all that, and then you want to be in the Air Force.
Yeah, but I thought this was like what the Air Force was. You know what I mean? Because this is the auxiliary of the Air Force, so this is just gearing me up, right? So I had.
There's like 100 people in the Air Force that's their reality.
Yeah, that's AFSOC people. But
sorry, there's more than that. But
yeah, but it's like we're hiking around with Alice packs with metal frames digging into our backs, carrying 50, 60 pounds of equipment because back then we didn't get MRAs as kids. We had to carry canned food.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
canned
the
food's
old like the sea rats or
No,
whatever.
we didn't have sea rats. I'd go to like
you have to go
Pathmark.
get your own canned food.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I'm hiking around with like 30 pounds of cans.
Yeah, bro.
And then like a poncho liner. And like an old, it was nuts, right? And then like,
That's some great training right there.
Well,
man.
it was
Probably
hard.
made you a beast.
And I think I told you this before the podcast started, but like that sucked and it hurt. And I got blisters. I got the worst trench foot in my life. Now I'm a princess when it comes to boots. Like I buy the best boots, Garmont's, like
Same.
NFS. Like
Yeah,
I don't, because my feet got so screwed up with the Civil Air Patrol hiking around in the woods in Pennsylvania.
Like never again. No issue ever
dude,
again.
They have us carry people in Stokes baskets and stretchers for like miles.
Dang.
Like teams, like we'd have like 1-inch tubular nylon webbing. There's 8 of us on the Stokes basket carrying up and down the mountains, like simulating a rescue from a downed aircraft. Like no one's coming to get you.
Yeah.
And we're like 14, 15, 16 years old. This is like what adults do. And like, but we thought it was like, this is what, and most of us ended up joining the military or going to academies after
Go
that.
figure.
So you thought that this is the best place to go, right?
For sure.
And like it was good training. So then I became old enough to actually go get my EMT license.
Right.
Like we first started off.
So then you're showing up to decapitated heads and burning
House
bodies
fires,
and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Going to find lost old people with Alzheimer's in the woods, So at 16 years old, like I'm out there actually serving in West Milford Township and going on fire calls and going house fires, and most of it was car accidents, ironically.
Right.
Got a lot of exposure to extrication. Actually went to extrication school when I was 17.
Okay.
Became a Scott man when I was 18 because New Jersey, you can't wear an air pack in a burning building until you're 18. So I did all the outside stuff, extrication, car accidents, things like that. And then once I became 18, I went to fire school, firefighter 1. And I was also a varsity athlete. So I was playing varsity football, varsity winter track, varsity spring track. I was the captain of the track team. So I'm trying to do everything, and I'm also trying to keep my grades up as much as possible. But like I said, I was also in a band because I thought that was a good idea. So I was like playing guitar, singing in a band at the coffee house on the weekends with my friends. But everyone always made fun of me. They call me Designated Dorito because like I refuse to smoke or drink at all because I'm like, if the Air Force Academy finds out, I'm not going to be able to go.
I was the same way.
Yeah,
because I knew I wanted to do ROTC and I can't get in trouble.
Yeah.
So I never did anything. Kept me straight as an arrow.
But it was good.
Yeah.
But the cool thing was that's how I got invited to parties. Because like I would never get invited because I'm not one of the cool kids.
I did not get invited.
I never get invited. But I'm like, hey, but I'll be the DD.
Yeah.
Oh, Dorito can come because he's the DD, right? So
I remember you kind of talking about this where because of the way you were raised and things like that too, you had this like, and I can really relate to this need to be accepted, right?
Yeah.
Like you weren't good enough on your own. The story in your head was probably something similar like what I was like, if they only knew the real me, right? So you're kind of trying to please everyone else. It sounds like that was something that you struggled with a lot too. And so like in many ways, I know it was practical to want to get to an academy, but was some of that also like, hey, I need to succeed to kind of like hide my insecurity or?
I mean, like, I was in all AP classes with a varsity jacket.
Yeah,
it's not a thing in high school. Do you know what I mean? So I'm hanging out. I'm hanging out with the band and theater nerds in AP class, getting ready for Monday or Friday night football.
Right.
And then like, oh yeah, bro, like, riding razor scooters down the thing, trying not to get detention. But the teachers never gave me detention because they're like, it's Dorito, just leave him alone. He's just trying to fit in. You know what I mean? And but But I mean, that's where I met some of my best friends. Like I met Matt Lewandowski, Pete Driscoll. They're still my best friends to this day
Wow.
from high school.
Okay.
You know, and they're like, you're a dork. So if you help us do our homework, we'll let you play.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
was like, you know, you do these things to get accepted. And, you know, like a lot of rowdy, crazy stuff happened. Like, and the worst part was as the EMT firefighter with the pagers and the radios in my truck,
Yeah.
I always knew what was going on. So like when kids were getting in trouble,
You
I
knew
could
who it
hear about it on
was.
the radio.
Yeah. So do you save your friends from stuff?
All the time. All the time. Like, oh, there's a car accident.
Corruption.
There's cops.
Corruption.
I'm like, I know where it is. I had the blue lights on my car. You know what I mean? Because I have like an official volunteer for the state. So like,
Sure.
Dorito, we need to get out of here. Like, throw them in my car, turn the lights on, drive right past the cops, and like that were raiding a house party. And it was, oh, we got in Dorito's truck, we got away.
Yeah.
And I never forget there was like this really bad house party where like there was probably like it was like a scene out of American Pie. There was like 200 kids there, underage drinking,
Oh, geez.
punching holes in grandma's wall.
Oh man.
And like I had my camo net because I had all the stuff in the surplus store. I used to hide my truck in the back corner with a camo net. And then when shit would go bad and the cops would be raiding the house, we'd sprint out, take the camo net off my truck, jump in the back, and we're ripping down the highway with the blue lights on because nobody would stop the volunteer guy, right?
Yeah.
And I remember like everyone got arrested. All these except like the 10 kids that somehow fit in my little Dodge Dakota. And we got down the road and I remember it was like Halloween night. And we stopped at the Island. It was this bar in the middle of Route 23 because they all just wanted to keep drinking. I'm like, God, you got to get home. Like, we're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
You know. And I remember the song.
Oh, that is the most. Sorry, that's the most teenager thing
So
ever. Where it's like
teenager.
we just narrowly escaped the cops because our buddy can literally cheat the system with his volunteer lights, and we're gonna stay out and go to a bar.
Yeah.
Yes, this
Yeah.
is teenage decision making at its finest.
And I remember
Well
everyone's
done.
drunk and passed out, and I'll never forget like the song Oasis, Champagne Supernova comes on my stereo, and everyone's like singing out loud and like singing to the song. We're driving down the highway. There's people in the back of the bed too,
Oh,
just like
geez.
hanging out.
Yeah.
And we get back, and everyone kind of got out of it. And like the next day, it was like a Monday, I think, and I get called into the principal's office, and they're like, "Dorito, were you at that house party?"
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
"I don't know what you're talking about." And they're like, "So apparently you've been going to house parties and getting people out of trouble." I'm like you have no proof of this. It's
Yeah.
like we're throwing beer cans in like the elementary school dumpsters to get rid of all the evidence
Yeah,
from all the
yeah,
house
yeah,
parties and
yeah.
stuff. But so I started getting a little bit more rambunctious towards the end,
Mm.
and I think the first beer I had was at this one party I went to because I'm like, all right, I need to try beer. And what it's like being drunk before I go to college because I don't ever want to drink at the academy because I'm going to get kicked out if I
Yeah.
get accepted, right? So like my friend Matt gets me drunk for the first night and I'm just sitting there like eating saltines and crying about how bad being drunk is and how much I hate the feeling of this. I'm pretty much the same way today. Like I hate drinking to this day, but it was good. I mean, because when I went to the academy eventually, like I never drank.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I know what it's like.
So how did the whole application process go? And like, were you surprised to get accepted to the
I
academy?
was
Okay.
because I didn't make it through the first and second round, and I didn't hear back from Annapolis, West Point, Merchant Marine, Coast Guard. I applied to all of them. I
Okay.
also applied to Embry-Riddle and Penn State University ROTC programs and everything else. And it wasn't until April.
So even the ROTCs didn't.
Well, it was, I don't know what was going on in 2006, but it
Mm.
was weird. It was like a weird time frame. So like, I'm like, man, I thought my grades were good. I have all this public service. Like what's going on? And then I remember I got all the packets in the mail at the same time. It was weird. It was wild. I got accepted to everything I applied for.
Oh, okay.
I got accepted to every university, every ROTC program, every single service academy.
Wow.
Got all my nominations and everything else.
And
I'm
you
like,
still picked the Air Force.
I still picked the Air Force. Looking back on it now, I
join the
probably should
Army,
have went to
kids.
West Point.
Yeah, go to the Army.
West Point was only 30 minutes from my house, too. You know what I mean? But I'm like, I don't want to stay home. I want to go far,
Yeah,
far. I'm going to go
yeah.
skiing every
I want to
weekend.
go to Colorado, man.
Man, be careful what you wish for. Thanks,
Yeah.
Mom. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like, I'm going to go out west. I'm going to get away from New Jersey. I'm going to get away from all this stuff, all the, crap I grew up in. And, I mean, kind of before we get to that, I should tell this one story about, like, bullying. So I got bullied so bad that, like, me and my friend Asa, who's the guy who deployed at the 173rd I told you about.
Yeah, okay.
We were the super dorks, right? Like,
Okay.
we were both in CAP together. He was in Silver Air Patrol too. He'll never admit it. This guy's a triple combat vet and got selected to be a Green
I mean,
Beret.
with
He'll
what you
never
told me,
admit
it sounds awesome. That's like,
it prepared us for the Army.
Yeah,
It really did.
I'm sure.
It's still to this day some of the worst, hardest training I've ever done in my life. Nothing in the military has matched that. Close with the Marine Corps, but we'll get there. But I remember there was a big party in High Crest Lake, and I think we were in 7th grade at the time, and we didn't get invited. We were the only kids not to get invited because we're the losers.
yeah.
So, we're in the Silver Air Patrol. Like, we thought we were funny. So we put on like ski masks and we steal my neighbor's boat. And we had just coming back from Hawk Mountain. So my
Okay.
parents always let us buy fireworks in Pennsylvania because they're illegal in New Jersey. And Ace used to smoke. So we get this boat and we go all the way across the lake with this. They're having this huge party that everyone in the middle school is invited except us. And we wait till they fall asleep. Like, we think we're Navy SEALs. We're like on the edge of the boat with this little electric motor going across.
Silent.
And we had a bunch of zip ties with us, and we waited till they all fell asleep. And then we zip tied all of their tents shut so they couldn't get out, right? And then we set up all these fireworks
Right around them.
all around this person's yard. And then we take all the cigarettes, we start puffing on them, and we start putting them on as fuses. Like, that'll give us like 5-10 minutes. We get in the boat, we go back halfway across the lake, and we're sitting there just like, fuck, it didn't work.
Yeah.
Damn. Oh, well. So we start going back. All of a sudden, the entire backyard just blows up and explodes. Like, tents are kind of on fire. There's Roman candles everywhere, shooting everywhere. And, like, the whole neighborhood wakes up because it literally sounded like an artillery strike. It was a lot of fireworks.
Like with hundreds, thousands? What are we talking?
Hundreds. It was hundreds of Roman candles, black cats, M80s, like whatever my parents. I think we had $200, and that actually got you a lot of fireworks back then.
Yeah, because this is like early 2000s. Right?
Yeah, like 2004, 3, and
that's like that's like 4 fireworks today.
I didn't tell him until I came back from my first time at the academy that it was us. You know what I mean? So, like, the entire time, like, we took it to the jocks and all the popular people that didn't invite us. But, like, their parents were pissed because, like, burned their tents and, like, there was, like, broken windows. People were, like, cutting their ways out of tents because they couldn't get out and they were trapped and they were freaking out. But I'm just like, you know, sometimes you just got to stand up for yourself. And although I don't recommend doing this today for children, you know what I mean? Like, it was funny and I don't regret a single moment of that. Like, it was so awesome to get back at those kids for treating us like shit our entire childhood.
It's like a scene out of a movie, like legit out of like you were referencing kind of like those 90s movies. That seems like something you'd see out of.
It looked like the scene in Home Alone and 2 when he sets up all the fireworks in Central Park. That's what it looked like.
Okay.
Yeah, it was awesome. The cops got called. Like, it was like, you know, because people thought the house was on fire. You know what I mean? Like, so all those kids got in trouble and like, ha ha ha, you know, like whatever. But, you know, it's one of those memories I have that I 100% don't regret as a kid, you know. But I mean, yeah, the day I got accepted to the Air Force Academy was like, it was amazing. I remember I got home by myself and I see this giant thick envelope and I open it up and I just get outside and I just like scream. I'm like, holy shit, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'm leaving New Jersey. I'm out of here, you know. And I went back to school. My teachers were so proud of me. They were just like, you earned this. Like, I don't know, you know, you've been trying your entire life, you know, literally since middle school. After you graduated 6th grade, because it's been you're going to the Air Force Academy to be an aeronautical engineer. Didn't become an aeronautical engineer. But
poli-sci and fly, right?
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, it was. We graduated high school. I remember we went to Terrence Pond, which is this extremely dangerous abandoned quarry in New Jersey, and we went cliff jumping 3 hours before graduation, which you can't do that today because too many kids died doing it. Don't know how I lived doing that because if you don't clear that rock at the bottom, you're dead. Threw on our gowns, still soaking wet, sat through graduation, and 4 days later, I left for basic training.
Dang.
Like, I didn't even have a summer. Like, I flew out to Colorado, and I was just like, here we are. And, yeah, that was an experience.
Had you ever flown before?
Yeah, so my neighbor was a pilot, so sometimes he'd take me up. And, like, you know, I had done some flying with the Civil Air Patrol and stuff, too, so I always wanted to be a pilot my entire life.
I was just curious if that trip to the Air Force was your first. Like, that always killed me when I was at Airborne School in 2009. There was, like, a ton of dudes. They were like, this is my first time ever getting on a plane. And I was like, because they like the Army bussed them there, you know, they weren't far enough. They came from basic or whatever, you know, they'd never flown anywhere yet. And they're like, yeah, this is my first time getting on a plane. I'm like, wait, hang on. So the first time you're getting on a plane, you're literally jumping out the door?
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, actually. So,
no, it is pretty nuts.
So they've been up in a plane 5 times and they never landed. Think about that. That's kind of nuts, right?
That is actually really funny.
There was a lot of guys like that. And I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, I was just curious if that was your first, the irony of going to the Air Force. And that would have been your first flight.
Yeah,
you know?
no, I mean, all the air shows I've been to, getting to fly with my neighbors, like, I wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah, you knew it. There was no question.
That's all I wanted to do. So the problem is I get to the Air Force Academy, and like I said, all the life experiences I had leading up to that, I thought that
you think it's
just like Top Gun. I think it's like Top Gun. Like, this is the best of America. This is what every all-American kid strives to go to. This is a privilege to go here.
Yep.
And I show up, and I think I met like 10 kids like that. I show up and I realize
out of hundreds who are not like that.
There was I think there was 1,200 kids originally in the class of 2010.
Class. Okay.
I think they ended up graduating like a little over 700. But you know, you get there and I only met one kid. He's from West Virginia actually, and he was like crying at issue. I'm like, stop being a little bitch. Like, why are you crying? He's like, this is the first pair of new shoes I've ever had in my life.
Oh shit.
And then you're like,
wow,
these are my people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like these really poor kids who like really appreciated the experience of getting to go to a military academy. But then everyone else is just like, they're there to play Division I sports, or it was like their 3rd or 4th choice because they didn't get into West Point or something, or their dad was a colonel or a general, their mom was, and this was like they just got put right in, or they knew some congressman or senator. And I never worked in those circles, so I didn't know. I actually legitimately worked my butt off to get into a military academy from nothing, so I didn't really get along with people there at all. And being from New Jersey, still had the New Jersey attitude of, Tony Soprano, go F yourself and everything.
People in the Northeast have an attitude? I've never heard that.
And especially since like I already been to like as an EMT firefighter, like all that.
Right, yeah,
I've
you've
seen
a lot of
much stuff. I'm just
so I just want to pause on that real fast because like we didn't go through all of it here, and you've talked about it in many other podcasts, but like the amount of just gore and traumatic events that you've seen happen at this point in your life is more than most people will ever see in their entire lives. And you're a teenager, basically. I mean, there was a very, you basically drink from the fire hose of like bad things that happen.
Literal fire hose.
A lot in your teenage years. And then, you were kind of, it almost gave you a false sense of what's normal for like government service, various uniformed services, right? Whether it's EMT or military. But, and I kind of remember a little bit of the similar experience when I showed up to do ROTC, where I was like, yeah, I'm going to be in the Army now. And it's like, you're not in the Army. Like we like do one thing a month, it's like, you're going to school. And I was like, this is lame,
I'm like,
enlisted.
So where's the ruck marches? Where's the guns?
Yeah,
this is the Air Force. We don't
that's
do
what
that.
I asked. I said, when do we go to the range? And like once a year. And I was like, what? Like I shoot more as a civilian. What are you talking about? So that was kind of, I can relate to that, but the level of things that you were exposed to is clearly not normal for most people.
For me, it was normal.
Right, for you. But I mean, it's just most people will never even see that level of trauma. And I had heard you talk about this too, where I don't think you were necessarily repressing it. I think you just actually learned how to operate very well on like rely on your training. And kind of just, hey, I need to focus on this, this, and this. This is how you resuscitate. This is how you do this, and not really let it get to you. And did you ever have a point later on where like maybe you didn't learn the skills how to emotionally, like after the fact? Okay, all right. So I don't want to like over fast forward to that, but from what I understood, it seemed like you actually had a pretty good handle on it, but maybe not.
Well, the thing is, like, I was really good at dealing with things that didn't matter. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Like, for example, I had this other call where this was the first time somebody died in my arms, literally.
Okay.
And the pager went off. It was an elderly woman who had fallen in the shower. I'm like, oh, great, another elderly person. And 80% of your calls as an EMT is old people having problems, right? So didn't think much of it. And I show up to the house. I'm like, hey, just have the rig meet me there because we live in a really big town. So sometimes it takes 20, 30 minutes for I was closer. So we get out there, or I get out there, and two little kids answer the door. It's like 5, 7 years old. And I'm like, did you call 911? And they're like, oh, yeah, grandma's down in the basement. And I'm like, okay. So I go down to the basement, and I see this woman, blue, laying in the shower. And I'm like, oh, shit, this is real. And I go up there, and it's really weird because, like, your training just kicks in. Like, you're not thinking about, oh, my God, there's a dead, naked woman.
Right,
or she wasn't dead at the time.
Dying, but yeah.
And I'm like, I just start literally reciting the EMT manual. All right, check spinal alignment, pull them out, open the airway, and I'm opening up my bag. I'm pulling out my bag valve mask, my BMV or BVM, and I just start bagging her. I start doing chest compressions. I can feel every bone breaking in her ribs. I can feel the life coming out of her. I can feel the heartbeat slowly dissipating and going away. And I'm just like, I'm not going to lose this person. Like I literally broke every single bone in her chest. And I remember then the mom starts coming down the stairs, and she sees they lived in a mother-daughter split, and I don't think they realized how bad the situation was. I think they were, oh, my mom fell again. I'm just going to call 911.
Wow.
They're crying. The whole family is hysterical.
Yeah.
I'm totally zoning it out. I'm just trying to do my job and save this person. And then my partner showed up, and they had brought in the AED, and we hook her up, and like I wouldn't stop. And they had to pull me off of her, and they were like, DeRito, she's gone.
Yeah.
Because nobody called me Adam. They'll call me DeRito, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm not, it's not happening with me. Like, it's not, and they're like, no, dude, you need to stop. And the paramedics pulled me off, and they made me go sit in the truck for a while. And they were just like, you're all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. It's whatever. Let's go to the next call. My instantaneous response was, let's just go to the next thing. Like, we got to go save somebody else. And I think this is the hardest lesson I had to learn in my life, which definitely will come later as well. You can't save everybody.
Yeah.
And that hurts a lot because you are given this false sense of reality through all this training, all these experiences that you can save everybody if you just do the right thing and follow the steps and do these things. And no matter what you do, and this is probably the bigger focus of this podcast, is that no matter what you do, if you just do the right thing, it'll all work out.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, life's not fair.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works.
Yep. Well, so that's in a very trauma casualty care situation. Yes. Combat, obviously. But I also think that's with not necessarily like life-saving realities, but also like someone has an addiction, or you're trying, I mean, things like that. You're trying to teach them a better way to live, to stop hurting themselves, emotionally or whatever, and you can't save them all. That's been a hard lesson I've had to learn too. Of some people are just not ready to release their vice or their pain because it's what makes them comfortable, or at least mentally they think it does. And yeah, that's hard. It's hard to let people go in that sense too. I think that transfers across all aspects of life, but you had to kind of confront it in a very violent way early on in life that most people don't learn until much later. But so at what point then, how I know there's a lot in between here, but like at what point did you actually kind of learn how to emotionally work through and kind of process these things that you had seen?
Man, that's a good question. I don't even know if I can do that today, to be honest.
Really?
I mean,
Okay.
I've gotten better at it over the years.
Okay.
I think after my combat deployment, I broke, and we'll obviously get that by the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
But there was also a call, and I guess fast forward a bit, when I left the academy, I was on Colorado Search and Rescue, Mountain Search and Rescue.
Okay.
And we were on this call where father and daughter had gone missing on Mount Missouri. They'd been out there for 9 days. No one knew where they were. And I had a lot of search experience before that.
Sure.
But the problem is when you start dealing with volunteers and these county organizations, they all just want the freaking flashing lights and magnetic bumper stickers saying they're home search and rescue, I'm this. I don't care about the accolades, man.
Yeah.
We're out there to freaking bring somebody home.
Yeah.
And they weren't listening to me. I was like, hey, search theory wise, this is human behavior. This is likely the most likely area they were. My theory is that they were actually the worst people to find in search and rescue, the highly experienced people.
Yep. Yeah, because they try and save themselves and then make it worse.
Exactly.
Yeah. The best people are the ones who just sit still and like shine a mirror or something.
Sit there and don't move.
Yeah.
And they tried to take the ridge line back to the parking lot because I guess my theory was, there's a couple other guys, was that they got caught in a bad storm and they were trying to get down to the parking lot as fast as possible. So they took a ridge line down, and she had fallen through a collier, plummeted probably 1,800 feet to 2,000 feet to her death. But she wasn't dead. And we'll talk about that at the end. She had broken her back. And then the worst thing he did, he dove in after her and hit every single rock on the way down, skinned his face, skinned his arm. When we found his body, it was all the way down to the bones from his forearms, all the way down, trying to stop himself from falling off the cliff. And we flew up there in a National Guard helicopter. And I'm like, oh, wow, the one place you guys didn't want to look that I told you to look, there they are. They're laying in the snow right there. And we just spent 8 days bringing up search dogs and taking pictures and talking to the news when I'm like, we're not there for you, man. We're there for them.
Right.
Come to find out that she had been there. She'd been alive for about 5 days. And if we had just done the right thing and as a team collectively just said, hey, we need to find these people, not placate to the news, they might have lived. He definitely wouldn't have survived. He died from massive impact trauma, but she was laying next to her dead dad for several days. And the reason why she couldn't move or do anything is because she had broken her back. So she was paralyzed from the waist down. So she sat there and baked in the snow for several days and died of exposure. And after that mission, I quit anything involving civilian volunteering, rescuing, anything, because I sat there and just went, I don't volunteer to do these things because I need another reward. I do this to bring people home. And I've done it before in my life. And when I saw a team consistently fail over and over again to do the right thing because they wanted another sticker for their car or they want another flashing light on their bumpers, I just couldn't handle doing that anymore. And I was probably around 2012, but that's when I quit doing anything involving in public service.
Okay. Sounds like it's still...
It bothers me a lot. It actually makes me legitimately mad because I know there's still volunteers out there like, oh, I want to go join the junior police or the junior firefighters or whatever like this because I need to get into college or whatever. I never joined those things for myself. I joined
Mhm.
them to serve the people that I lived with in my community.
Gotcha.
And there's a couple of us, don't get me wrong. I know plenty of volunteers who always do the right thing and,
Right.
and have been doing it for a very long time. Heck, some of the guys I was in the fire department with are now captains and,
Okay.
you know, of
Yeah.
the fire departments now at
Sure.
30, 40 years old, right?
Yeah.
But that's just a warning to anyone joining the military or being a cop or a firefighter or an EMT is that don't do it for you, do it for them. And
Mhm.
when it gets to the point where it's not for them anymore, you have to stop.
Mm. Okay.
You have to,
Yeah.
because it'll eat you alive.
Yeah, and we'll maybe we come back to this later too. It's also kind of that conversation we had about those things don't make you special either.
You're not special.
Doing those jobs
No.
it doesn't give you license to act like you're a better person.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
it's
it
just
doesn't.
something you did, and you know sometimes those are very good heroic things, but it's like life has to continue, and those organizations have to continue after you leave them also.
Mhm.
Um,
And are you going to be a good example for the people coming in
Right.
behind you, or are you going to continue to set the bad example and the bad things keep happening?
mm,
You know, and that's kind of like bad things keep happening is like my experience at the academy.
okay,
Right.
Yeah, so let's bring that back, and
Yeah.
just for the viewers, like we kind of we're
We
going to be here
ping-ponged
for
a
a
lot.
minute. We ping ponged a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of go through those like more human elements of
Yeah.
a lot of the things you had gone through that were outside of the academy situation, because I know that this one is very complex, and
It changed my life.
yeah, you could say that just lightly. And so, why don't we just start? You get to the academy, it's not what you expected. I can definitely relate to kind of that feeling of disappointment and kind of realizing that, you know, there are some uglier aspects to the military in all areas. But sounds like you made a lot of enemies really quickly, and I kind of want to get to like, you know, fast forward to the part where it started getting really hard for you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, day one, I thought we were gonna have a bunch of MTIs or military training instructors, which
Yeah,
are
yeah.
drill sergeant for the Air Force. It was just a bunch of fat cadets with bad haircuts. So immediately, I just didn't respect them.
Yeah, you were like, what a joke.
You know, they're like,
Yeah.
oh, what? You don't even know what leadership is, Dorito. I'm like, actually, the definition of leadership is the art of influencing and directing people in a way that will obtain their willing obedience, confidence, respect, and loyal cooperation in achieving a common objective. And maybe you should try it. And then I did push-ups,
Mhm.
but I think in the Air Force that's like 20, so it wasn't that much. So I didn't make friends right off the bat.
Yeah.
But I ended up finding a group of guys. I joined the rugby team.
Okay.
I played football all through high school. You know, loved it, and then ended up playing rugby in the academy because I didn't want to be a football player at the academy. I
Yeah.
wanted to be an officer, but I wanted to do something that was still kind of combative and still
Right.
hang out with
Yeah.
the guys. And rugby is the best compromise. You get to hurt people, you get to stay in shape and work out, drink a couple beers every now and then, but your main focus is still being an officer.
Mhm.
And that's actually what I really loved about the rugby team. They still hold those values and traditions today. And but then I started realizing like the Air Force isn't for me. I didn't get
Mhm.
along with anybody there except the guys in the rugby team. Like I fought every single commander on everything because I'm just like, weren't you supposed to deploy to Afghanistan, Iraq at some point in time? It's like 2007, 2008. Like,
Mm.
what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like I lost friends in combat at
Yeah.
19 years old at that point in time. And I have a bunch of guys who've never deployed.
Mm.
And they're a bunch of desk officers. And it was just weird. You meet a few AFSOC guys every now and then that sprinkled them. They're smoking cigarettes with their red berets. And then you realize why they were doing that. Now I do. Like they just hated the academy and they were just there for their staff duty tour. And they're just
Yeah.
like, I have to handle this.
They're stressed
You know?
out.
Yeah.
It's like the Ben Affleck picture where he's like
Exactly.
just trying to decompress.
Actually, the main AFSOC, Major Stanger, he was a special tactics officer. And I'm like, now I understand why he was the way he was. He was there for a staff duty tour to make colonel and just had to go to the academy, do his 2 years and
Yeah.
leave. But I actually contemplated on quitting. I talked to my mom about it, and I'm like,
Mhm.
hey, I'd rather just take my ROTC scholarship and go somewhere else. He said, Adam, you can't afford that. We're broke. You can't do any of this
Yeah,
stuff. My
yeah.
parents are going through a really rough time. Like my sisters are going through a rough time without me being there anymore. Divorce is on the table. You know, a whole bunch of stuff is going on. And I'm like, this is why I left New Jersey in the first place. So I
Yeah.
can't go home even if I wanted to. So
Did you feel any like responsibility about like you left and now your family's struggling?
yeah, I did a little bit because the thing is,
Because are you the oldest?
yeah, I am the
Okay,
oldest.
I am too. Yeah.
And I have 2 younger sisters. But the problem is, I think I had, because I've listened to a lot of your stories too about, I love my mom. She's the greatest. But there was a lot of things going on. Like she'd be blaming my dad for everything. My dad was an alcoholic at the time.
Mm.
He hasn't drank in 20 years now.
Good.
You know what I mean? But my dad, in my view, what I saw when I was a kid, never took it out on his kids.
Mm.
Never took it out on my mom. Like there was no violence or anything. But it was just like my dad was so depressed because my mom's sister had gotten killed in a car accident. And my mom never recovered from that, even to this day.
Your mom's sister.
Yes, my aunt.
Okay, your aunt got in a car.
And my little cousin, when she was 10, got killed in a horrific car accident. Like a tree fell out of the woods while they were driving and just killed them. Like totally
Whoa.
random, right? So and that happened in 2003. So when I was still in, right when I started high school, when I was a freshman. My mom ended up working in hospice after that because she loves hanging out with dead people, I guess. But like for my dad, it was like he lost his wife. And even to this day, she's never been the same. You know, she never recovered from losing her sister and my cousin. And in my opinion, my mom just got kind of aggressive with it and, you know, started in a way manipulating my sisters about the reality of what was really going on at the time. But they were so young, they don't remember.
Right.
Even you try to talk to them about it today, they're like, that's not the way it was.
Right.
I was old enough that I remember.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for my dad because, you know, instead of having a wife now, he just had beer. He couldn't come home and talk to his wife and have a loving relationship with his wife anymore because she was so beside herself about the death of her sister that he just had no one to talk to. I was the guy he talked to all the time. I was his son.
Oh.
So my dad and I are very, very close. You know, his alcoholism got worse over the couple years, especially when I came back from Marine OCS, and we'll get there. But like, you know, he did fix himself. 100%.
Yeah.
He did fix himself, and he's still a good man to this day. And my mom is an amazing mom, but like that was a very turbulent, hard time where I couldn't quit the academy and go home if I wanted to. You know, so I decided, and all my friends are deployed to Iraq and they're going to Afghanistan, they're shooting bad guys, and I'm still sitting there trying to basically pass freaking math at the academy. And I'm like, you know what? I want to go to the Army. I want to go to the Marines. So I started doing something called Army programs at the Air Force Academy, where it's like if you pass this screening process, you can go to airborne school or air assault. Right. So I passed that and they gave me the option to go to either or. But then Marine Officer Candidate School screeners came up and they're like, this is your way out if you want to go. So I go talk to the Marine recruiter officer at the Air Force Academy, Major Clinky. And he's like, well,
that's a really funny
Colonel
name.
Clink. You know, he was a Harrier pilot. Right. And he's like, well, DeRito, I don't think you understand this, but anyone can actually go into any branch out of any service academy. It's just a gentleman's agreement that if you go to West Point, you stay Army. But you can actually go into the Air Force from West Point if you really want to.
Well, to that point, I don't know him personally, but a good friend of mine, a guy he deployed with, was a Navy SEAL officer who had gone to the Air Force Academy. Yeah. Because he was a competitive swimmer, and the Air Force wanted him to swim for them. So he did that and then went to the Navy. Yeah.
So even though I was doing ruck marching again in the Air Force, trying to get into Army Air Assault, Army Airborne, I'm like, do I want to go to a school or do I want to cross commission?
Right. Yeah. It's permanent. Like
permanent.
Make this my job.
So I decided that I was going to go into Marines. So I started this like year-long screening process where I would just get hazed by the kids who went to Marine Officer Candidate School the year before me, so the class of 2009, while I was doing Army program stuff at the same time. So I'd be like going on a ruck march with the Army guys, then coming back and going right into a Marine screen. And like, you're trying to kill yourself. I'm just like, I just want to get out of here. And the only way I can do this is if I push myself. And like I said, I've done Hawk Mountain and stuff. So, I mean, whatever. Yeah. It's just another day.
This wasn't the worst thing that's happened to you at this point.
No, but like I said, but the thing is, I didn't have a lot of friends at the academy. I had like one or two people I'd hang out with. They're still my best friends today. You know, I met them on the rugby team, Elliot Loper and Richard Meldrum. Yeah. And I didn't go to parties. I didn't go out and drink. I didn't do anything because I'm like, I'm just trying to make it through this place.
Well, part of that was because you were always in trouble too, right?
They hated me at the academy.
Confined to the academy.
Oh, God. Yeah. I was like being in jail. Don't go to these academies, kids. I go into jail for 4 years. Not recommended. Yeah. That's my personal experience. You know, experiences may vary.
I've heard that from a lot of friends.
Experiences may vary. But, you know, like dating wasn't a thing back then. I didn't have any girlfriends. Like, I didn't date anyone who was a cadet. Like, didn't want to get involved.
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
No. So online dating was like a new thing back then. I think it was like, I don't know.
This like predates Match or whatever, right? It's like
it was like eharmony.com or something like that.
Yeah.
And just before smartphones, like just the internet. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're still using your Hotmail address. You know what I mean? Like
and this is the day and age too where like Facebook was only for college people who had the
Facebook
college.
was a new thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I ended up like
So MySpace was still big.
Yeah, MySpace was still a thing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just songs on your
Yeah, me and my dashboard confessional T-shirt, just hanging
really
out
old.
with my puka bead necklace. It's fine.
Yeah. We're getting really old. Did you bleach your hair?
No, I did not bleach my hair.
You escaped that trend.
Yeah, I did escape that trend. I didn't want to dye my hair because I didn't want to have any reason not to get into the military. Straight up, that's why I didn't do it.
All right.
I was such a dork.
You're doing the Marine thing. You're basically just like.
Yep. So I'm going through the screening process, right?
Okay.
And then I'm talking to this person online, you know, ASL, age, sex, location, like 19 years old, you know, female, like Colorado Springs. Yeah. But the problem is I never got any dates with any of these women that I was talking to online because I couldn't leave. Yeah. So
it's just these like fantasy emails to each other.
Yeah. And I was just like, but it never went anywhere. And that was the end of it. Right. So I remember one day I'm sitting in my room doing my homework and my commander comes up to my room. He's like, hey, DeRito. I'm like, yes, sir. Lieutenant Colonel Christensen. you need to go talk to Air Force OSI. I'm like, the hell is Air Force OSI? And for anyone who doesn't know, it's the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. They're equivalent to Army CID, Criminal Investigations Division or whatever. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I go down there, and it's like a scene out of the movies. It's like you go down to this like dark hallway in this basement of some building, and there's like one little sign next to a mirrored wall that says AFOSI.
And the person behind the desk is like the lady from Monsters Inc.
Yep,
Like,
but you can't see them because they're behind another mirrored wall.
Okay.
There's one chair in the hallway. And to keep in mind, prior to this, I had never had a bad experience with law enforcement in my life. I worked with cops.
right.
I worked with
Always,
firefighters.
always when they're saving and helping people.
Always super honest and transparent. Tell them
Yeah.
everything they want to know because I've never been in trouble with the cops, literally, ever. And I get in there and like, sit down. I'm like, okay. They make me sit there for 3 hours. I'm like, I got homework.
They're sweating you out.
I skipped
Yeah.
rugby practice. They bring me to this Special Agent Munson, Special Agent Szymanski. They come greet me at the door. I'm like, hey, guys, what's up? Like, my commander told me you wanted to talk to me. He's like, yeah, come on in this room. They sit me in there for another 3 hours, just stewing. I'm like, what is going on? Like, it's now like 9 o'clock at night.
yeah.
I have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go on a ruck march with the Marines, right? And I'm like, this is gonna suck. Haven't done any of my homework. 'Cause you do 4 hours of homework a night at the academy. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yep.
And
And if it's not done, it's more demerits and
Oh.
more trouble.
yeah, it's so stupid. So they eventually come in. They're like, hey, just want to let you know, like, so you've been like trying to do online dating. I'm like, yeah, me and everyone else at this place.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, well, is this your email address? I'm like, yep. It's like, I don't know, Falcon something that like, I don't even remember what it was. And like, okay, well, did you know who you were talking to? I'm like, well, no, I've never met this person, never talked to him on the phone, no, nothing. And they were just like, well, did you know that she was underage? And I was like, no, how would I know that?
Yeah.
It says right there, they're 19 years old. That's what they told me. How would I know any different? And this is also during the Chris Hansen years
Yeah.
to Catch a Predator.
So people are starting to get a little.
Yeah, people are, and I'm just like, like, okay, well, you did nothing wrong. You didn't know who they were. So do you know anyone else at the academy who's doing this stuff? And I was like, yeah, I can give you an entire list of people who is talking to people online. Well, anyone talking specifically about minors? I'm like, well, that I can't tell you. I don't go off base. I don't hang out with these people, so that I wouldn't know. And like, well, and this is the catch. Like, well, you seem like a really good guy. And like, you've been a firefighter, EMT. You've worked with cops. Like, you seem like a pretty. You want to go to the Marines? We understand. I was like, yeah. Like, how'd you know that? Like, I don't know how they know these things.
They know details about your life that you're like, you shouldn't know this.
So I'm like, I'm the anti-Air Force kid. I'm the guy that is extremely honest, tells the truth about everything.
Yep.
To my detriment. Sometimes I'm too honest. And they're just like, well, how do you want to work for us? Like, what do you mean work for you? And they're like, well, if something's weird, we can't, this isn't 21 Jump Street. We just can't go in there and, hello, fellow cadets. Like, we're obviously cops.
What's his name? Dang it. I can't remember the actor's name. The really funny looking guy.
Oh, Jonah Hill?
No. He does all the stuff with like Adam Sandberg.
Oh,
or,
yeah.
Adam Sandler.
Belushi. Not Belushi. Buscemi. Steve Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi, yeah. It's
Yeah,
like,
hello,
how do you do,
fellow-
fellow kids?
Yeah, that's exactly it, right?
So
So
these cops are like that.
But they're like, hey, man, well, here's an email address. Here's a burner phone. And if anything goes on, just give us a heads up.
So they make you a CI.
Yeah, so I didn't know what the name of it was, but I was a confidential informant at the time, or an undercover, whatever, informant. And I loved it.
You're a rat.
No, but I loved it because I hated most of the kids I went to the academy with. So I was the perfect person to be recruited for this. I had no problem, and I hate to say you're a rat, but I'm like, these
I
kids
didn't know they
some of these
did
kids,
this.
but some of these kids were criminals.
I didn't know they did this. This is actually like
Yeah,
at
neither
first
did
I heard of this, I was like, whoa. I mean, it makes sense. It makes a
They
lot
have
of
them
sense.
for all of you out there in every federal service academy. There's CIs working everywhere. Just letting you know.
Yeah.
That's how it is. Even today. They say they don't exist, but they do. But that was like the kid that was always kind of in trouble, but not in real trouble. Just had an attitude problem with his commanders.
Right. It's the stupid trouble. It's the academy trouble, not legal trouble.
Exactly. I wanted to go to the Marine Corps. I didn't want to be in the Air Force.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I was a perfect target for them.
Okay, so you start doing all this.
Yeah, but dude, the shit that I found out, like there was these football players going to parties and drugging women and like raping them, and it was like turning this giant rape scandal. It's actually,
Whoa.
if you look it up, it's called Operation Gridiron, and this is what I found out years later. But like, I wasn't the only CI either. There was lots of other CIs at the academy. And the thing is, we purposely didn't know who we were.
yeah, sure.
Right?
They do that on purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought we were doing good, right? I'm going after kids who are trying to have sex with 16-year-olds in the Springs. We're going after football players who are drugging women. I'm giving all the information to the cops, and then we give the information to the cops, and the cops are going to go out and take care of it, right? Great. Awesome. So I finally get enough where I can leave base, and I'm like, finally. So I'm 21 at the time, and we met some people on Facebook at CSU. So they were going to go run the Fort Collins Marathon the next day, I think. And like, well, DeRito doesn't drink, so he'll drive us up there and drive us back. So I go up to this thing, and it was like a scene out of American Pie. I'm like, wait, this is what college is supposed to be like? There's this like hot women everywhere rolling kegs down the street. Like, I'm like, wait, I could have had, you had an extra pair of gloves this whole time? Yeah, we're the Rockies.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that was my reaction. And it was like my first time like going to Colorado Springs in like 3 years since I've lived there. I mostly stayed on base. I never went anywhere. I never went skiing, never went anywhere, and just stuck in jail for 4 years. So I go up there and like we go to this house party and we meet with some of these kids we were talking to on Facebook, and like things are going great, you know. And the thing is, I was not a big drinker, but I had a couple beers. I was 21 at the time. But then this woman hands me this drink, and I drink it, and I don't remember anything after midnight. And I remember everything when I drink. Like I'm Irish. I know my genetics. I know how much I can drink. I tested it out in high school. You know what I mean? I know my reactions when I'm drunk.
You hadn't been going past that point.
No. And I hate when people come back, because I've told the story a lot, where they go, oh, you're just making this up. I'm like, no, I'm not making this up. Like, I legitimately don't remember anything after like 11:30, 11:45 p.m. I remember that timestamp now.
What would you gain from making this up? It's like
nothing.
Yeah.
But whatever. You know, that's what happened on the Indie Stump podcast, my first time I ever did it, right? They're like, oh, there's no way this happened. I'm like, no, it happened. And ironically, this happens to more than 40% of the men in the military, and no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah, I think the stat on, I forget the exact number, so don't quote me exactly, but the actual number of like sexual assault or those types of or teetering on it that happens to men is surprisingly high.
Yeah, it's
like,
over 40%.
Yeah, it's actually very often. It's not isolated to only women.
And there's more men in the military, so statistically it happens more to men than it does to women. We just only care about the women because they're women. No one cares about the men.
Right, yeah. It's the same thing just like with domestic abuse.
Yep. No one talks about the
I think
wives
it's
beating on their husbands.
It's over 70% of like where it's the female abusing the male, it's just unreported.
Yep.
It's like the estimate, because you can't, how would you know it's unreported?
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I'm not
so it's not a competition. It's not a race to the bottom. It's just like this happens more than people realize. So it's like it's not like an isolated incident.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't remember anything. I wake up the next morning and I'm in a dorm room. I'm like, how the fuck did I get here?
Like at CSU?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a Sunday. I'm supposed to be back on base by 9 for formation.
Oh no.
It's like 8:30. It's a 2 hours plus drive, and I'm like, oh no. I'm going to get in trouble again. I'm going to be restricted. I'm never going to be able to leave base again. That was actually my first thing. I was like, I'm just going to get in trouble again and never be able to leave. The first time I was able to leave, and now I already screwed it
so
up.
you weren't even worried about, like,
well,
I might have been drugged or anything?
No, but then I get up and I realize that, like, and not to get graphic, but, like, my pants were off. Everything below my belt line felt like it got hit with sandpaper. It was all red and messed up. And I'm like, this isn't good. But then, like, trauma reaction, EMT, I'm like, all right, I've been poisoned. Something's wrong, because I had the worst headache ever. Like, not a drinking headache.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like somebody was sticking an anvil and smashing it in my skull. And I'm like, all right, I don't have activated carbon. Like, this is how my brain was thinking. I need activated carbon now, you know, like an EMT. And I'm like, no. So I go to a Denny's across the street. I don't. No one's even in the dorm room. Like, I leave the dorm room. Like, I don't even know how I got there. Like, it was weird. My cell phone was dead in my pocket, so I couldn't call anybody. I didn't know where my truck was. Thank God I still had my keys, too. I find the closest Denny's. It was like a walk across the street, and I sit down. I eat the greasiest, heaviest thing I could get. I drink an entire pot of coffee. I drink as much water as I can. I'm starting to get some brain fog out. But I'm like, what? I'm more worried about getting in trouble than what had happened.
Yeah.
I eventually find my truck. I start finding some landmarks about where I was on campus, and I get in my truck. I charge my phone up. I call my commander. I tell him I'm going to be late. He's like, of course you're going to be late. DeRito, the first weekend I let you out, and now you're already going to be late. I'm like, great, here we go.
Yeah.
So I get back down there, and I'm like thinking about this, processing it, trying to drive to the Springs with this massive headache, and I tell him what happened. I'm like, sir, I think I got raped. And he's like, oh, of course you got raped, DeRito, because now you're just trying to get out of being in trouble. And I'm like, I don't trust this guy at all. I don't trust Lieutenant Colonel Christensen whatsoever. So at the time, we still had the SAPR program, the Sexual Assault Prevention Response Center, right?
Okay.
And as a cadet, you get training in it. So I immediately file a report.
Yeah.
I actually go file a legitimate report. I call up my OSI handlers, right? And I say, hey, guys, because I trust them, right? I was working for them for like almost a year now at the point, because now it's like 2008 and a half. Right? Going into 2009. And I tell them what's going on. They actually took me seriously. They filed a report with OSI. Then I filed a report with the Fort Collins Police Department. And then I filed a report with the official Air Force channels, you know, and then we go up to Fort Collins to do the interview. And I still remember his name to this day, Detective Adam Smith. And he actually goes, they actually found who it was, and I won't say her name here, but they found out who it was, and apparently she had a history of this with military men.
Oh, wow.
And she actually wasn't even a student at CSU. She would like go to campuses and find men.
She's a predator. This is her target-rich environment.
Correct.
Yeah.
And she had, because it had already been hundreds night at the point in time, and she had stolen my Air Force Academy ring. It was gone, so I had to get my replacement one. And it turned into this huge thing. But then the Air Force was, and this is like the biggest legal mistake I ever made because I trusted my OSI handlers, and they said, hey, man, we can't really help you as much because the jurisdiction is in Fort Collins. But if you give jurisdiction wholly to the Air Force, we can help you because we know you. I gave jurisdiction for my case from the Fort Collins Police Department to the Air Force Academy, Air Force OSI. And that was the biggest mistake I ever made. And the biggest piece of advice I can give to anyone involved in a sexual assault, especially off base, never, ever, ever, ever give your case away to military police because they will do whatever they can to hide it and cover it up and not put any responsibility on you because those civilian cops actually wanted to help me.
Right.
But when I gave jurisdiction to the Air Force, they're out of it. And that's it. You can't give it back. You know, it's one of those things where once you cross that line, you can't give it back. So the whole thing was like, now I'm on restriction. Now I'm on suicide watch. Now I'm on all these other things that I can't go anywhere. I got more restrictions on me. I can't, my commander wouldn't even let me play rugby. Right. Because I was a risk to myself. Right, because you got raped. Apparently, you might be suicidal and everything else. And
so let's take away the one thing you love.
So it gets crazier though because this woman, like I ignored her and everything else. She tracked me down, and apparently her dad was a colonel or something like that, and she was able to get on base. So she was like stalking me at the Air Force Academy, like in the cadet area, like waiting on the wall, right? And I remember one time I made a stupid mistake of where I put, hey, I was getting ready to go to Marine Officer Candidate School, right? And I'm like, I'm going to go run up Eagles Peak today because you can put your status on Facebook. She saw that. She found me on the trail.
Oh, geez.
At Eagles Peak. And she followed me up there and then pretended to trip and fall and like get injured so I would like have to help her. And I'm like, I'm not playing this game. I called 911. And I had the entire Colorado Springs Police Department search and rescue team up there with a helicopter to pull her off the mountain. Just say, hey, sir. I'm not doing this. There was a civilian who was stalking me, and she got injured, and it was actually in the news. It was a whole big deal, right? But like you're bringing attention to the Air Force Academy. Now you're doing this. I'm like, sir, I'm telling you, there's somebody stalking me. You're not doing anything about it. I'm trying to put all my ducks in a row and be honest and report.
Did they
all
ever
these things.
do any like kit or anything?
So for me, the problem was I'd taken a shower by the time I got back to the academy, and rape kits for men were not really a thing back then. Okay. You know what I mean? So I mean, so far with what you're saying, it just sounds like a whole lot of what we call victim blaming. Yep. And they're like, oh, DeRito's always a problem kid. He doesn't want to be here. He hates the Air Force. He wants to go to the Marines. Now he's trying to draw this attention to himself so that way he doesn't seem like he's doing anything bad, even though I was just being honest about what was going on, but no one took me seriously. So the crazy part was I'm just about getting ready to go to Marine Officer Candidate School, and she calls the Vice Superintendent's office, the 3-star.
Of the Air Force?
Of the Air Force Academy. Okay. She tells them that she's pregnant. I don't remember any of this. I don't know how that's possible. And I'm like, oh, well, and now they're like, oh, of course. Oh, yeah. So the guy that got raped got this girl pregnant, huh? Well, to fast forward really quick so your listeners don't lose their mind. She made it all up. It was all a lie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But she did that to try to stop me from going to Marine Officer Candidate School.
Good Lord.
Right. And then now the Air Force Academy is like, we're going to let you go to the Marine Officer Candidate School. We're going to deal with this when we get back. Because I had Marine orders, so it was different. Like, they can't cancel the program because funding and stuff like that. And so I got to Marine Officer Candidate School. She had contacted my sister on Facebook and gotten my address, and she was writing me letters the entire time I was at Marine Officer Candidate School.
Jeez.
Like,
did you try to go back to any kind of police for like a new stalking?
I was reporting it to the Marines.
Okay.
The entire time I was there.
Yeah.
And
did they do anything with it?
They're like, "Who the fuck is what is this? Why are you getting these letters, DeRito?"
Yeah.
And I'm just like, long story short, don't pay attention to them, ignore them. Let me just do my 6 weeks of Marine Officer Candidate School.
Yeah.
And whatever. So I just every time we got a letter from them, I just give it to the gunnery sergeant and just say, just hold on to this until I don't even want to read them.
Yeah.
So I'm at Marine Officer Candidate School, and I was happier than a pig in shit. I'm like, these are my people. I show up, and it was instant hazing. I'm like, this is what I joined the military for. I showed up in a polo and khakis, and it was instantaneously like, die. You know what I mean? To start doing push-ups, and it was just like black top, 100% humidity in Quantico, Brownfield, Virginia. And I got to turn my brain off and just be a dumb military person, and it was great. And then the first week, after you get your uniforms issued and everything else, and half these guys are NROTC or prior enlisted Marines who are going through officer candidate school.
Right.
I'm the only Air Force person there. They don't know this yet. Let's get to that. So
I would have kept that secret too.
Yeah, well, I tried, and I thought I was funny because I think I'm funny. And they're going around and they make you say your major and what branch you want to go into.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm just like, USAFA. And they're like, what is USAFA? And I'm like, University of Sciences and Fine Arts Academy. And then you see this gunnery sergeant, because they all eat crowns. USAFA. Wait a minute, you're the Air Force guy, because they knew they had an Air Force guy in the roster. They knew who it was.
Yeah.
And they instantaneously took all my stuff in my trunk and threw it off the second deck into the mud. And then I was low crawling in my Ranger panties, because we still had the green Ranger panties back then.
The silkies.
Yeah, they don't issue them anymore. But
What?
Yeah, they got rid of them after a couple years after I left the Marine Corps. Yeah.
Really?
You can buy them in your own, but the issue PT
thought...
shorts now are like the Army ones where they have the liner and the longer shorts now.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, it's really sad.
Oh.
Bring back the Silkies, Marine Corps. Pete Hegseth, get the Silkies back in the Marine Corps. Brings back morale. And
skies out, thighs out, baby.
Skies out, thighs out, right? So I just got absolutely destroyed from then on there. And then they were like, you're now a fire team leader. I'm like, I don't even know what a fire team leader is. And and at the Air Force Academy, being a cadet leader, like a squadron leader or whatever, or a element leader as they call them.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, as long as you guys are doing your homework and doing everything you're supposed to, I'll leave you alone. Well, that's not how the Marine Corps or the Army operates at all. You are supposed to be in your face, interactive leadership and everything else. And I had to get the Air Force literally beat out of me.
Yeah.
So I remember we're on this, I think it was our 9-mile ruck march, because you do a 3, 6, 9, and a 12. Right. And actually, the 3 is the worst because you're running the entire time.
You just have to go so fast.
Yeah, you're running the entire time. And I'm on my 9, and it's in the middle of the night, and we're going up this place called Da Nang. And Da Nang is just this giant mud hill. You can't see anything. You can only see the gunnery sergeants in the distance, because they have these little glow sticks in their pockets. And you're touching literally the ruck in front of you, because you can't even see a foot in front of you, because the woods are so dark and dense out there. And I just hear I think it was Gunnery Sergeant Clay. He just goes, DeRito, are you a Blue Falcon? And I'm just like, not responding. And he's like, DeRito, where's DeRito? And I could see the light sticks moving in the distance.
Yeah,
they're trying to find me.
Back to you.
They're trying to find me.
Like the ominous glow approaching.
Yeah, the ominous glow is approaching me down the hill. I'm like,
it's like that fish in the deep ocean.
Yeah,
it's got the little lantern.
Yeah, exactly. From Finding Nemo. Yeah, and I could see the glow sticks starting to surround me, because they figure out, well, DeRito's over there. DeRito's up. Like, everyone's just selling me out. I'm like, damn it. And then they're like, are you a Blue Falcon? And they're just knife handing me from every corner in the dark. And I can feel the spit in my face. And I'm like, what is going on right now? And I'm thinking in my head, I have no idea of actual military terminology. Blue Falcon.
This is the first time you've heard this
ever.
Phrase. Okay.
I'm like, Blue Falcon, Air Force Academy. The mascot is a Blue Falcon. And my response was, Gunnery Sergeant. This candidate is a Blue Falcon. And then I just hear everyone, you could hear a pin drop in the woods. And it was like, what? And then you see every single glow stick from every company swarming me and sprinting towards me in the dark. I'm like, I am in so much trouble right now. And just start running. Just start running right now. And I'm just like, okay. And they give me the battalion flag. And I'm just like, they're like, you're going to run around this entire battalion saying, Gunnery Sergeant, this can is Blue Falcon until we say stop. So I'm running, my 9 mile is probably a 15. And I didn't quit.
Jeez.
I did not quit. I just kept running satellites around the entire battalion, hiking through the woods.
With the guide on?
With the guide on. Yeah. And we get back, and I was dead. I was smoked.
Yeah, that's hard work.
And every single prior enlisted Marine was like, DeRito, we knew you were retarded, but we didn't know you were this stupid. They're like, do you have any idea what you just did for the past 6 hours? I was like, no, I don't understand. I'm just doing what I'm told. I'm just trying to make it through this. And they're like, you just told the entire Marine Corps officer candidate school for the past several hours that you were a buddy fucker. I was like, oh.
Which is the actual meaning of Blue Falcon.
So I'm just like, I did what? So the next
day... You don't want
to
be a Blue Falcon. It's the worst possible term someone can give you.
You have an interview every week to see if you're going to make it to the next week. And that week, they dragged me into Colonel Mancini's office. And they're like, you need to tell us why you want to be a Marine right now. And every single E7, E8, E9, Colonel, Major, Captain is standing there just
eating crayons.
Yeah,
looking
eating
intense.
crayons. Staring me down. I tell the story about Lance Corporal Brian Perella, the kid from my town who got killed, and how my friends are deployed in Iraq, and I just wanted to be a Marine. And I'm not saying the Air Force is a mistake, but I just realized that the Air Force is no longer in my heart, and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And they said, all right, fine, get out of here. And I leave, and they say, pack up your shit, you're getting kicked out. This is week 4. And I'm like, I didn't make it. I failed, and they make me pack up all my stuff, and I get in a van, and they drive me all the way to Ronald Reagan International Airport. They make me get out, and then he just takes his flip phone out of his pocket, and he goes, "DeRito, hold on." I'm like, "What?" "Yes, sir, blah, 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 blah." I'm like, keep in mind, I have no DTS orders. I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
They say, "The colonel's giving you another chance. Get back in the van." And I'm like, "What?" Like,
Jeez.
obviously, they did this to motivate me. This is not real because
Okay.
because if
all
you were
an
really
act.
getting kicked out,
Yeah.
and if you get kicked out of any military school, there's like a process. You go pick weeks. You wait for your DTS orders. You know, or your vouchers or whatever.
They got to at least write you something.
Yeah. No, they didn't do anything. They were
Yeah.
just messing with me, but I didn't realize that they were doing this to see if I really wanted to be there because I was like an idiot. Like I was like getting the Air Force beat out of me. So I get back there, Colonel Mancini's there, and they just haze the crap out of me on the parade deck. I'm just doing push-ups on the blacktop, just getting hazed. And there's like, "All right, here's the deal, DeRito. If you want to stay here, you are now the candidate company commander. You're in charge of OCS. If you make one fuck up, you're out of here." And I was like, "Oh no." Like, so I get back to the squad bay. They're all cleaning their M4s. And like, "Oh, he's back." Because everyone thought I got kicked out.
Yeah.
So all the
Someone's taking your bunk already.
Oh yeah, they're taking all my stuff, divvying up my blankets and all my issued clothes and stuff. And they were just like, in the prior enlisted Marine, his name was Gunnery Sergeant Schneider. He was an E7. He's like one of those guys that sits in the back.
Yeah.
But he was an OCS candidate. So he was, he was a DI at Paris Island. So
Yeah.
he goes, "All right, DeRito, here's the deal. You obviously really want to be here, but I need to teach you how to be a Marine because you're a moron."
That sentence is hilarious. You were too dumb to be a Marine.
Yeah, I was. Because like you just stop thinking and just do what you're told. Read all these manuals, read them.
Yep.
Understand tactics. Understand Marine Corps DDP 1. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, and I was like, all right. So he starts teaching me and I start learning. I start memorizing everything and I didn't screw up. I went through SULI, which was single unit leadership evaluation. I had a 99.8%.
Nice.
No one even got that high. Like infantry tactics, like learning the best that I could. And I made it. I made it all the way through. I didn't screw up as the candidate company commander for the last 2 weeks at OCS, all the way to graduation. And they were hazing me. Like, I mean, they just every day I was carrying a telephone pole or running more than everyone else. But I didn't quit. I was getting singled out everywhere I went. I didn't quit. And then graduation day comes. It was like the proudest day of my life. They give this whole rah-rah speech. We're all going to Afghanistan and Iraq to die for our countries because that's the way it was in 2009.
It's the surge years,
And everyone got pinned second lieutenant bars except me because I have to go back to the academy and finish my last 2 semesters.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. This is really strange because it's like it should have been the finish line, but it's not.
And I would have given everything to quit everything in the Air Force at that point, take my second lieutenant bars, and go to the basic school across the street. I would have done everything. And every single sergeant instructor that I had at OCS came up to me, completely different person. They turned off their DIs. They said, "DeRito, I can't believe you didn't quit, man." They were just like, "We try to get you to quit every single day for 6 weeks." And they were just like, "I would be honored to serve underneath you as a second lieutenant." And
the waterworks are coming now. Oh yeah, dude. I remember having some NCOs give me those types of conversations pretty early on in my career, and it's like,
but to see this like giant guy with 22-inch biceps like talk to me as a human, in front of my mom and my sisters and stuff and my whole family,
it's powerful.
It was, and they wrote me my letters of recommendation across commission. They did, and I went back to the academy. Best shape I've ever been in. I mean, my veins are sticking out of my arms with my roll.
You're feeling like too cool for school now, right? Because you're like,
I get back and it was the swine flu pandemic at the Air Force Academy, so I didn't have my Air Force uniforms. I just got off the bus. Rhetorically, in my Marine uniform, no one knew who I was. I was 25 pounds less, and like in a Marine uniform at the Air Force Academy, trying to get my Air Force uniform because I had to go back and be a cadet. So the Marine Officer Candidate School doesn't count as your leadership credit for the year. So I still had to go. Yeah, I know, right? So I still had to go back and be a cadet drill instructor for like the basic cadet trainees. But since it was a swine flu outbreak, I got put at the prep school, which is the other part of the academy, and I've never been to the prep school. I was a direct entry, so I was a 4-year program guy, not the 5-year program.
Yep.
So they send me as the only non-direct entry cadet instructor who just got out of Marine OCS to the prep school, and I realized I was not at a military institution. Like after you leave Marine Officer Candidate School and you come back to the Air Force Academy, never mind the prep school.
Yeah.
It's like worse than the Boy Scouts. It's like worse than Stripes. You know what I mean? You're like, what is going on?
The movie with Bill Murray.
Yeah. Or like, what's the one with Major Payne?
Yeah, Major Payne.
It was like that. To me, that's the perception I had coming back to the Air Force. And I was like, I was so military. I was so
compared to what you just left, it was like super intense. And I've never been to OCS, but I have heard that in general, OCS is exceptionally hard on purpose.
It is very hard.
because one, it's very hard to get into,
Mhm.
right? Especially if you're like active duty, enlisted, and try to get in. It's very selective. And then, yeah, they put you through the ringer because they're like, you got to earn it. You're doing it very condensed. You know, most people
Yep.
take 4 years. You're getting what, 6 weeks?
6 weeks.
So that's a lot. That's a lot of suck all at once.
It was a lot of suck. So I come back to do my last 2 semesters. And this is a lesson I had to learn. I was extremely arrogant.
Yeah.
You know, I was
Right.
like, I thought I was the best of the best now.
Yeah.
I finally earned something that the Air Force Academy couldn't take away from me. And my words, these losers couldn't tell me what to do anymore.
Yeah, that was your attitude.
You know, and I was still technically working for OSI at the time. I'd taken a break in service because I was gone at Marine OCS. And then I had to come back and deal with this whole fake pregnancy thing, which all went away. And eventually it all went away. And nothing came of it, you know. But I was like, nope, I'm just going to the Marine Corps. I had my Marine Corps recruiting poster outside my door. I had a Marine Corps flag hanging in my room. So needless to say, I pissed off every single Air Force person at the Air Force Academy. You know, and every day they'd be like, you're never going to be a Marine officer. You're never going to get selected. Like, you still have to make it to the Air Force Selection Board to go get your cross commission granted. And then I got the letter that I got in, and I was going to be a Marine Naval Aviator. I got my pilot slot, fighters to go, hopefully fly fighters, you know, and I'm like, I wasn't going to fly in the Air Force, so I'm going to go fly in the Marines now. I just have to make it through the last 100 days and get out of this place, you know, and 4 weeks before graduation, Air Force OSI calls me back into the office.
Okay.
And they're just like, so you were at the prep school and you were doing all these rape cases because I had reported a bunch of stuff after the prep school thing. A bunch of crazy shit was going on. Lots of underage drinking, lots of football stuff. Same shit as before, just different context. But I'm like, you guys have all the information I gave you. I don't want to be involved with these people anymore. But then they're like, well, you know, they all said that you were having an unprofessional relationship with the cadet candidates as a cadet. And I was like, no. And they're just like, well, there's nothing we could do for you because like 15 of them are saying that you did because they were all getting in trouble. They were all getting brought up on charges and
so
stuff.
they're all,
You know, so, you know, if they all tell the same story, they're not going to believe me. I have no evidence to counter that because it didn't happen. So, like, there's no evidence of anything, right? So, Air Force OSI goes, and this is the second biggest legal mistake I ever had, never having a lawyer, never having anything. They're like, hey, your commander just wants to give you an Article 15 for fraternization. It's no big deal. Slap on the wrist, you get out of here. You have to stay an extra 30 days of duty. You go right to TBS. We'll vouch for you with the 3-star. You've worked for us for 2 years now because now it's like 2010. I'm like, all right, what? They're like, well, just sign this admitting that you admitted to fraternization. I'm like, that's it. I signed this Article 15 for fraternization, and then I just go be a Marine and end this. And they're like, yeah. So I signed it without a lawyer, without counsel, without nothing. You know what the Air Force Academy did with that? They destroyed my life.
Yeah.
They said I was crazy. They said I was suicidal, all this other stuff, even though I've never been to a psychologist or any of these things. They made me go take a mental health evaluation on a computer, which I passed with, you know, because they were trying to prove that I was crazy. But, you know, my rape counselor reviewed the documents and said, yeah, he's fine. He's just obviously upset by how he's being treated here, which I think is understandable at the time. He's gone through 4 years, went through Marine OCS. I just want to get out of here and go fly. And so it's like 3 hours before graduation at the Air Force Academy. My whole family's out there. And they pull me from the ceremony. They say, you're not graduating today. I'm standing there in my parade dress. My whole family's out there. And if you want to talk about the one time I thought about, like, hanging myself, like, that was it. I'm like, I just made it through all of this. Finally get out of here. My entire family is here. And they pulled me from my graduation ceremony 3 hours before I was supposed to walk and get my diploma. And they said, you're on 30 days of extra duty for your Article 15 you signed. So we'll consider your graduation after 30 days. So I sat there and I built a gazebo, picking weeds, doing dumb stuff as a cadet / second lieutenant, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, you're in this weird ether where you're not a cadet anymore, but you're not technically commissioned yet because they won't officially give you your degree until after your 30 days of punishment. And then 30 days comes up and I see a bunch of K-9 units and a bunch of security force officers with M4s approach me. They escort me to the superintendent's office. They make me sign a statement saying I'm getting kicked out. I owe the government $285,000 and get off base. You can't get kicked out of the military that way. I've learned that over the years, but that's what they did to me. I had $40 left in my checking account, and I had a half a tank of gas in my truck. I call up my lieutenant colonel friend who's down at NORAD, and he even comes in there screaming like, well, you can't do this. Like, this is so illegal, and I didn't know anybody. I'm 22. I'm freaking out. Like, I don't know what's going on. So I was escorted by...
It's not even age. It's you've never seen the military process work with, like,
no, I don't know.
Stuff.
I don't. Yeah. So, like, I literally got escorted off base by a K-9 unit with armed guards with guns, saying I was a threat And I'm like, why are they treating me like this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. My problem was I'm always overly honest about stuff. And so I go to my sponsor's house because when you go to the Air Force Academy, you get a sponsor family you can hang with on the weekends.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I have no idea what to do. And they're like, well, your life's over. It's done. Like, you're a civilian now. Keep in mind, I didn't have a DD-214 or anything at this point. It was just get off base. You have like 6 hours to pack and leave. And I'm like, what? You know, like anyone who's been in the military knows that's not how things work.
No,
you can't do that.
You'd have to be separated through some process of either punitive or administrative separation. You can't just,
you know,
it's actually surprisingly hard to get someone out of the military.
It is, but they did it in like 3 hours apparently.
Even people who, it doesn't happen that fast. Like people who have committed crimes, it takes months sometimes to get them out of the military. It's insane. So
yeah, no, and I didn't know what to do with my life. So, you know, this is where I started like doing bad stuff. You know, I mean, I started working out every single day because I had nothing else better to do.
So just overnight, you're just like
a civilian.
Gone.
That's it. Like
so
I didn't
you
exist.
Didn't commission or anything.
Nope. They rescinded my degree and my commission orders.
So you don't even have a degree from the Air Force?
Nope. Nothing. They took everything I worked for in the last 4 years meant nothing.
And there's no paperwork or anything?
No. They just said get off base. Here's your checkout list of handing in your sheets and your cadet uniforms. That's not how that works, obviously.
No.
But that's how it worked for me. I go to the 10th District Court of Appeals, which is right below the Supreme Court. And the court comes back, and the Air Force made this argument under Bishop Gruelle. And they state, the military is a separate society and should be treated as such. And under Parker versus Levy, the federal courts cannot tell the military what to do, even though you've been given an injustice. So 7 years later, I put on my Maroon Beret, and I have a letter of demand from my lawyer. I go back to the Air Force Academy. First time I've been there in 7 years. Mm-hmm. They let me in. I go right to the superintendent's office, and I walk in there, and I place the letter on the superintendent's and the vice superintendent's office. And I go, so I want to let you know, I know what you did. I'm back at Trump's house. Now I'm meeting with even more important and influential people. Right. Then Lindsay and I are getting invited back to D.C., and I'm like, it's that easy. You know, you spend a couple $100 on a plane ticket and a hotel room, and you get invited to these events. And next thing you know, I've made more progress in changing things by showing up than spending money on lawyers.
Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you're on YouTube, drop a subscription to us. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a review. It helps greatly. If you are also ready to level up as a man, check out Elite Sentinel Coaching, our program designed specifically for men, where we forge men into leaders. We turn cowards into kings, weaklings into warriors. Become the hero in your story. Join us today.